Not every path to heaven is paved with beauty. Some churches inspire awe, others leave you questioning. Was this part of the plan? Today, we're counting down the 12 most creatively challenged Catholic churches in the U.S. Coming in at number 12, Cathedral of St. Mary of the Assumption, San Francisco, California. This church, fondly, or not so fondly, nicknamed the washing machine, is a bold statement in architectural modernity. Officially called St. Mary's Cathedral, it's impossible to ignore its striking geometric design. Created in the 1970s, the architects sought to merge spirituality with modernist ideals, yet the result left many scratching their heads. The top of the structure, reminiscent of an agitator from a vintage washing machine, dominates the skyline, making the building both memorable and polarizing. The stark, white concrete walls seem to rise abruptly, as if carved from a monolithic block of stone. However, instead of exuding peace or grandeur, the rigid angles and unembellished surfaces give the cathedral a cold and institutional vibe. For some visitors, stepping inside doesn't help much either. The interior is cavernous, with a sense of emptiness that can feel more like entering a sterile science lab than a sacred space. High ceilings and minimal ornamentation emphasize the vastness, but many feel it lacks warmth and intimacy. While some architectural enthusiasts appreciate the boldness of the design, others view it as a missed opportunity to balance innovation with beauty. Despite its quirks, the cathedral still serves as a spiritual home for many. But if you're hoping for a traditional church experience, brace yourself. This place is anything but conventional. 11. St. Joseph the Betrothed, Chicago, Illinois. St. Joseph the Betrothed is a true outlier in Chicago's Catholic landscape. Its unconventional design features a series of overlapping domes, giving it an appearance that's often compared to a cluster of UFOs preparing for takeoff. The church's exterior is dominated by circular forms and metallic finishes that make it look more like a futuristic observatory than a house of worship. Inside, the unique design continues with intricate mosaics and curving ceilings that add to the disorienting feel. While the craftsmanship is impressive, the overall aesthetic feels more like stepping into a sci-fi film set than a sacred space for reflection and prayer. The architectural boldness has earned it both praise and puzzled stares, making it one of the most debated churches in the city. 10. Our Lady of the Angels Cathedral, Los Angeles, California. Our Lady of the Angels Cathedral is a stark departure from the ornate, traditional cathedrals most people associate with Catholicism. Its angular, asymmetrical facade and towering concrete walls give it an imposing, fortress-like appearance. Designed by famed architect Rafael Moneo, the building's minimalist and brutalist style has been polarizing since its completion in 2002. Visitors often comment that the cathedral feels more like a modern art museum than a place of worship. The massive, windowless surfaces and unadorned exterior lack the warmth and invitation typical of Catholic churches. While the interior offers some respite with beautiful tapestries and natural light filtering through hidden openings, the overall effect is more austere than uplifting. Despite this, Our Lady of the Angels remains an iconic and important spiritual center in Los Angeles, albeit one that continues to divide opinions. Holy Family Catholic Church, New Rochelle, New York. The Holy Family Catholic Church in New Rochelle stands out, but not in the way most churches aim for. Its utilitarian, box-like structure makes it easy to mistake for a warehouse or an industrial building. In fact, unless you spot the cross perched on its roof, which looks like it was added as an afterthought, you might drive right past it without realizing it's a church at all. Constructed with plain brick walls and minimal detailing, the building feels more functional than inspirational. There are no grand stained glass windows to catch your eye or intricate carvings to admire. The lack of windows on the main facade doesn't help either, giving the exterior a somewhat fortress-like appearance that feels more defensive than welcoming. While the church prides itself on fostering community and spiritual growth, its architectural design has sparked questions about whether aesthetics were even considered. Some argue that the plainness reflects humility, but for many visitors, the building's lack of charm feels out of step with the warmth and openness they expect from a house of worship. Despite its underwhelming exterior, the Holy Family Catholic Church is still a hub of community activity. For regular parishioners, it's what happens inside that counts. But for first-time visitors, the initial impression might leave them longing for something a little more inspiring. St. Benedict's Catholic Church, Anchorage, Alaska. Anchorage, Alaska is known for its breathtaking natural landscapes, but St. Benedict's Catholic Church seems to have missed the memo. From the outside, the church resembles a lopsided spaceship, as though it crash-landed in the middle of Alaska and decided to stay. Its curvy, asymmetrical design feels completely out of sync with the rugged beauty that surrounds it. The architects behind this peculiar building aimed to create a structure that could withstand Alaska's harsh weather conditions. And while it's certainly functional, the overall aesthetic feels odd and disjointed. The roofline slopes in unexpected directions, and the oddly placed windows make the building look more like a carnival funhouse than a place of spiritual reflection. Visitors often report feeling confused rather than inspired when approaching the church. Some describe the design as quirky, while others are less charitable, calling it downright strange. Inside, the layout does little to dispel the carnival vibes, with a design that feels more like an experiment in architecture than a sacred sanctuary. For the local congregation, the church remains a place of worship and community, but for out-of-towners, it's hard to look past the unconventional design. In a place where nature's beauty reigns supreme, St. Benedict's feels like an oddball addition to the landscape. 7. Chapel of the Holy Cross, Sedona, Arizona. The Chapel of the Holy Cross in Sedona is undeniably unique, but its design divides opinion like few others. Perched dramatically on the red rock cliffs of Sedona, the chapel seems to emerge from the rock itself, or, depending on your perspective, it looks like it was jammed in there like an afterthought. The concept was to create a structure that harmonized with the surrounding landscape, but critics argued that the sharp, angular lines clash with the natural curves of the red rock formations. From certain angles, the chapel's boxy silhouette looks like a Lego block shoved into nature's masterpiece, disrupting the breathtaking harmony of the Sedona scenery. Inside, the chapel boasts large windows that provide stunning views of the surrounding desert, but the interior design itself is minimal, almost to a fault. Some visitors appreciate the simplicity, saying it encourages quiet reflection, while others find it uninspired. While many hail the chapel as an architectural marvel, others feel it detracts from Sedona's natural beauty. Its stark contrast to the organic landscape leaves some questioning whether it's a work of art or an architectural blunder. Regardless, it remains a popular destination for tourists and spiritual seekers alike, whether they come for the view, the history, or just to debate its design. 6. St. Monica Catholic Church, Santa Monica, California. When you think of Santa Monica, you imagine sunny beaches, scenic palm trees, and a vibrant coastal vibe. Naturally, you'd expect a church in this iconic city to embody some of that charm. Unfortunately, St. Monica Catholic Church does the exact opposite. From the outside, the building greets you with a dull gray facade that feels more like a courthouse or municipal office than a sacred space. The rigid, fortress-like structure gives the impression that it's designed to keep people out rather than invite them in. For a church named after such a revered saint, it's hard not to feel let down by its lackluster appearance. Stepping inside doesn't exactly redeem the experience. The interior has a cold and utilitarian feel, with dim lighting and minimal decorative touches. The pews and altar seem functional but uninspired, missing the warmth and grandeur that one might expect from a place of worship in such a picturesque city. Visitors often comment on the institutional atmosphere that makes it hard to feel spiritually uplifted. Given its location in the heart of Santa Monica, surrounded by vibrant architecture and stunning coastal beauty, you can't help but wonder how this design was approved. While the church community might be strong and welcoming, the building itself seems to miss the mark entirely, leaving both locals and visitors questioning why a place with so much potential ended up looking so unremarkable. 5. St. Mary Catholic Church, Grand Rapids, Michigan. Nicknames can be endearing, but when locals dub your church the Giant Shoebox, it's probably not a compliment. That's exactly the case for St. Mary Catholic Church in Grand Rapids, Michigan. At first glance, you might mistake it for a storage facility or a budget hotel rather than a house of worship. Its plain brick exterior is devoid of ornamentation, and the long rectangular shape doesn't do it any favors. With a flat roof that seems to go on forever and windows that appear to have been placed as an afterthought, the building's design feels like it was more about efficiency than inspiration. The lack of creativity extends to the interior as well. Visitors often describe it as stark and uninviting, with a layout that doesn't encourage the sense of awe or reverence you'd expect in a church. The acoustics are serviceable, but the overall atmosphere feels more like a lecture hall than a spiritual sanctuary. One has to wonder how the design was approved, especially in a city like Grand Rapids, which has a rich history of beautiful architecture. St. Mary's serves as a reminder that functionality alone isn't enough to create a meaningful space. While the church undoubtedly has a dedicated congregation, its uninspired design leaves a lot to be desired, making it one of the more disappointing sites in the area. 4. St. Francis de Sales Catholic Church, Muskegon, Michigan. If you've ever driven past St. Francis de Sales Catholic Church in Muskegon, you might have done a double take, not out of admiration, but sheer curiosity. With its sharp, sloping roofline and bright orange-brown exterior, the church looks more like a giant circus tent than a sacred space. The design is so unconventional that it's often compared to a festival pavilion or a roadside attraction, and not in a good way. The roofline is undoubtedly the most striking feature, but not in the way the architects might have intended. It slopes dramatically downward, creating an awkward silhouette that seems out of place in its surroundings. The bold choice of colors doesn't help either. The orange-brown hue clashes with the natural tones of the Michigan landscape, making the building stand out for all the wrong reasons. Inside, things are slightly better, but still far from remarkable. The sloping roof creates an odd sense of scale, with some areas feeling cavernous while others feel cramped. The layout is functional, but the design choices leave many scratching their heads. To its credit, the church has its fans, particularly those who appreciate bold and unconventional architecture. However, for most visitors, the design feels more confusing than inspiring. While it's certainly memorable, St. Francis de Sales is proof that standing out doesn't always equate to standing tall in terms of beauty or reverence. 3. St. Andrew Catholic Church, Richmond, Virginia. Walking up to St. Andrew Catholic Church in Richmond, you're immediately struck by a sense of design disarray. At first glance, the tall Gothic spires and dark brick walls give the impression of a traditional church. But as you get closer, the facade begins to reveal its contradictions. The modern windows, seemingly placed at random, clash with the otherwise historic aesthetic. It's as if two different architectural teams had a disagreement and decided to meet halfway, though neither side came out victorious. The awkwardness continues at the entrance. Unlike the grand welcoming doors typical of Gothic-style churches, St. Andrew's entrance is surprisingly simplistic and underwhelming. It almost feels like an afterthought, lacking the grandeur you'd expect from a structure with such imposing spires. Once inside, the mismatched theme persists. Modern elements like plain white walls and minimalist fixtures feel out of sync with the heavy traditional woodwork and stained glass. Many visitors describe the overall design as confusing and disjointed, with no clear theme tying it all together. For architecture enthusiasts, it's a frustrating experience, an example of potential squandered by indecisive planning. While some might find the eclectic mix of styles charming, most leave feeling puzzled. In a city rich with history and charm, St. Andrew Catholic Church stands out for all the wrong reasons, making it a head-scratcher even for those who appreciate architectural experimentation. 2. St. Vincent de Paul Catholic Church, Kansas City, Missouri. St. Vincent de Paul Catholic Church in Kansas City is one of those buildings that sparks debate the moment you lay eyes on it. Dubbed a concrete bunker by locals and visitors alike, its unyielding, brutalist design feels like it belongs in an apocalyptic sci-fi movie rather than a serene space for worship. The church's exterior is dominated by massive gray concrete walls, broken only by tiny slits for windows. Natural light is barely invited inside, and the structure seems more intent on keeping people out than welcoming them in. Many have commented that it bears an uncanny resemblance to a high-security prison or a fallout shelter. hardly inspiring thoughts of prayer or divine reflection. Step inside, and the interior does little to redeem itself. The stark, almost barren design lacks the warmth and ornamentation typical of Catholic churches. There are no vibrant stained glass windows, intricate carvings, or even a sense of community in the layout. The overwhelming use of concrete creates an atmosphere that's cold, impersonal, and, quite frankly, intimidating. It's no surprise that St. Vincent de Paul has gained notoriety as one of the most criticized Catholic churches in the U.S. While it might appeal to lovers of brutalist architecture, for most people, it fails to evoke the spiritual comfort one seeks in a place of worship. 1. Holy Angels Catholic Church, Chicago, Illinois. Holy Angels Catholic Church in Chicago is a striking example of modern architecture gone rogue, at least in the eyes of many critics. The building's design pushes the boundaries of tradition, but not necessarily in a way that inspires admiration. With its sharp, jagged angles and oddly shaped windows, the church seems more like an experimental art installation than a space for faith and reflection. Towering over the structure is a metallic roof that glistens under the sun, creating an effect that some might find dazzling but most find distracting. It's hard to focus on spiritual matters when the building itself feels like it's trying to outshine the message within. The interior doesn't escape critique either. While the designers likely aimed for innovation, the result has been described as visually confusing, with an assortment of elements that don't quite fit together harmoniously. Many parishioners have expressed frustration over the lack of a traditional feel, saying that the space doesn't provide the comfort or familiarity one expects from a church. Instead, the disjointed design seems to alienate rather than embrace. Holy Angels has certainly made a name for itself, but perhaps not in the way its architects intended. It remains a polarizing topic, particularly for those who value a more classic approach to religious architecture. When it comes to church architecture, beauty truly is in the eye of the beholder. Some of these designs may resonate with you, while others may leave you puzzled or even amused. The purpose of a church is, of course, much deeper than its appearance, but let's be honest. A beautiful building can inspire just as much as a meaningful sermon. That being said, these 10 churches show that not every architectural risk pays off. Now that you know about these unique churches, which one surprised you the most? Head to the comments below and let us know. And if you'd like more insightful content about the church, then subscribe to my channel and I'll see you in the next video.